For decades, if you wanted to go to space, well, you couldn't. It was an exclusive club, reserved for governments. It was slow, bureaucratic, and unbelievably expensive. The entire aerospace industry was built on a system that didn't just accept high costs, it actually rewarded them. And then, one company showed up to challenge the giants: Boeing, Lockheed Martin, even entire nations. This is the story of how SpaceX defied impossible odds to completely change our future among the stars.
To really get a sense of the stakes here, you just have to hear this one quote from the founder, Elon Musk. We're not talking about a simple business rivalry. We're talking about a venture so disruptive, it put him in the crosshairs of some of the most powerful people in the world.
But this whole massive story, it doesn't start with global ambitions and international intrigue. No, it starts with something much, much smaller. A tech founder who just got fired, a dusty old Soviet rocket manual, and a wonderfully, almost naively simple idea.
So picture this. It's the early 2000s. Elon Musk has just been pushed out of PayPal. He's got a couple $100 million and a brand new obsession. He was just profoundly disappointed that NASA had no real concrete plans to send humans to Mars. He felt like humanity had lost its ambition, and he wanted to do something grand to get people excited about space again.
So he cooks up this plan. He calls it the Mars Oasis Project. And really, it was basically a big philanthropic stunt. The idea was, 1, you buy a converted Russian missile. 2, you stick a small automated greenhouse on top. And 3, you send it to Mars and live stream a video of a plant growing on another planet for the whole world to see. It was all about inspiration.
There was just one tiny little problem. Okay, a massive problem. Rockets were just absurdly, ridiculously expensive. I mean, a single launch in the United States could set you back $65 million or more, which was way more than he had budgeted for the entire mission. So if he couldn't afford a rocket in America, well, he'd have to go shopping somewhere else. So in February 2002, Musk and a small team fly to Moscow to try and buy 3 of these missiles. The meetings themselves were surreal, apparently starting with round after round of vodka toasts. But the Russians just saw him as some rich dot-com kid and didn't take him seriously. They quoted him a price of $8 million for each missile. Musk, completely frustrated, just stormed out. The trip was a total failure. But on the long flight home, something changed everything. While his colleagues were just breathing a sigh of relief, Musk was hunched over his laptop, furiously typing. He had built a spreadsheet, and he was breaking down the actual cost of a rocket. And he made a staggering discovery. The raw materials, the actual metal, the copper, the carbon fiber, they only made up about 2% of the rocket's final price tag. He turned to his team and said something that would set the course for the future. I think we can build this rocket ourselves. This right here, this is his famous first principles thinking. You just break a problem all the way down to its fundamental truths. For him, a rocket wasn't some magical, unattainable thing. It was just a collection of materials. And in that giant 98% gap between the cost of the parts and the final sticker price, that's where he saw the real opportunity. This was no longer just about sending a plan to Mars. This was about building a company that could completely rewrite humanity's future in space.
And so, in 2002, Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX, was born. Musk poured $100 million of his own money into the venture. But building a rocket from scratch, well, that would prove to be a brutal, literal trial by fire.
Their first rocket, the Falcon 1, was ready for its first launch attempt from a remote island in the Pacific. For 25 beautiful seconds, everything looked perfect. And then it exploded. Just a ball of fire and shattered dreams. A year later, they were back, ready to try again. This time, the rocket got so close, it almost made it to orbit. But as the fuel tanks started to empty, the little bit of fuel left sloshed around. It destabilized the rocket, and the second stage engine shut down. Another failure. Another gut punch. The third attempt was even more crushing. Another year of hard work, another rocket, another explosion just minutes after liftoff. And you have to remember, with every single one of these failures, tens of millions of dollars of Musk's personal fortune were literally just going up in smoke. The company was on the verge of total collapse.
And the timing? Oh, it could not have been worse. This was the summer of 2008. The entire global financial system was melting down. Lehman Brothers was collapsing, and Musk had just sunk the very last of his money into his other struggling company, Tesla. By all accounts, he was completely out of cash and totally out of time. After 3 straight failures, with both of his companies teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, Musk somehow managed to scrape together just enough money for one
last shot. Everything was riding on this launch.
This was it, the point of no return. If this rocket failed, SpaceX was finished. The entire dream of affordable space travel, of making it to Mars, it would all be over.
And then, on September 28, 2008, it happened. The Falcon 1 soared into the sky, and this time, it just kept going. It reached orbit. This was a feat that only a handful of nations had ever accomplished, and now a small private company had pulled it off.
The victory was incredible, but the company was still flat broke. Then, just 2 days before Christmas, the phone rang. It was NASA. SpaceX had just been awarded a massive $1.6 billion contract to fly cargo missions to the International Space Station. It was a Christmas miracle that didn't just save the company, it completely transformed it.
Now with NASA's backing, SpaceX finally had the resources to chase its most revolutionary idea. The one thing that everyone in the legacy aerospace industry said was absolutely impossible: making rockets reusable. To understand just how radical this was, you have to look at the old way of doing things. The big aerospace companies ran on cost-plus contracts. Basically, the government paid for the cost of building the rocket, plus a guaranteed profit. This meant there was absolutely no incentive to be efficient. In fact, the more expensive your rocket was, the more money you made. SpaceX just shattered that whole model. They brought everything in-house, they offered a fixed price, and most importantly, they wanted to reuse their rockets like airplanes instead of just throwing them in the ocean after one flight. And the result of all this? Well, it was a revolution in the economics of space. A launch on an Atlas V rocket from the old guard, the United Launch Alliance, cost a staggering $400 million. A Falcon 9 launch? Just $62 million. This wasn't just a small improvement, it was an order of magnitude disruption that completely changed who could get to space and what they could do there.
But getting there was, you guessed it, another series of trials and failures. They started with a little test vehicle called Grasshopper that would just hop a few hundred feet in the air. Then came the really heart-stopping attempts to land the actual boosters at sea, with several ending in these massive, fiery explosions. But finally, in December 2015, they landed one, perfectly, on solid ground. The science fiction we all grew up with had just become engineering fact.
So, with reusability unlocked and launch costs in a freefall, SpaceX could now leverage its success to finally aim for that original audacious goal. And this is where you see the true genius of the SpaceX business model. It's a self-reinforcing flywheel. Step 1, dominate the launch market with your super low costs. Step 2, use those profits to build your own business in space, like the Starlink internet constellation. Step 3, Starlink becomes your biggest customer, guaranteeing a high flight rate, which lets you perfect your operations and drives costs down even further. And the whole thing, this entire massive enterprise, it's all designed to fund the one thing that started it all: building the Starship and getting humanity to Mars. From a moldy Russian rocket manual to the brink of colonizing another planet, SpaceX has completely rewritten the rules of what's possible. And as they build this giant vehicle, this ark designed to carry 1 million people to Mars, you really have to wonder, what are they truly creating? Is it just a company, or is it the foundation of a new world?